25 years of manufacturing work, and I have never once had a story worth telling. That's not a complaint. That's just the truth of that kind of life. You clock in, you do the job. You clock out. The days stack up and they look the same, and you are fine with that because the sameness is the point. The sameness is what pays the mortgage and keeps the lights on and lets you sleep at night without anything chasing you into your dreams. I don't sleep like that anymore. I want to be clear about something before I start. I did not go looking for this. I am a practical man. I know machines the way you know something after you've stood next to it for the better part of your adult life. Not from books, from hours, from listening, from learning what normal sounds like so you recognize the moment it stops. That instinct, the one I built over 25 years of plant floors and press rooms, is the only reason I noticed at all. I almost wish I hadn't. The plant I had been working at closed in March. Third time I've been through a closure. You learn not to take it personally. The work dries up and the facility shuts, and you file the paperwork and you start making calls. It took 3 months, that stretch. 3 months of applications and rejections, and the particular quiet of a house where you have too much time and not enough to fill it with. The Dolmer job came through a temp agency. Commercial printing, packaging, instruction manuals, bulk mailers. The kind of printed material nobody reads. Large facility out in rural Indiana, maybe 45 minutes from my house. Drive through flat country on a state road. Nothing remarkable about any of it. Night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Shutdown crew. My job was to power down the 4 large offset presses after the day shift finished, run the cleaning cycles, handle basic maintenance checks, and log it all in the system. Simple work. Work I could do with half my attention while the other half went somewhere quiet. I prefer nights. Always have. Fewer people, less noise. A person can exist without being required to perform. There were 2 others on the shift. A young woman named Cass, who worked inventory in the back half of the building and wore headphones at all times and communicated mostly through brief nods. And Roy, maintenance. 60 years old or close to it. Roy said approximately 4 words per hour and seemed to regard that as plenty. Neither of them was unfriendly. Neither of them was warm. We worked alongside each other without friction, and that was enough for all of us. The presses were called Press 1 through Press 4. 4 large offset units on the main floor, plus a digital machine and a lamination line along the back wall. During the day, that floor was loud enough to make your ears ring through protection. At night, after shutdown, it became the quietest room I have ever worked in. Big and dark and full of machines that weren't running. I felt comfortable in it. I felt like myself. First 2 weeks were routine. I learned each press the way you learn a press. Its sounds, its particular rhythms, what it needed. I filled my logs. I drank bad coffee. I did my job. The 3rd week, something changed. It was a Wednesday. I know that because I had called my daughter before my shift that evening, and we'd talked for a while about nothing in particular, and I'd felt good about it. Like a normal evening. The kind of ordinary detail you remember afterward because it is the last normal thing before something stops being normal. I had powered down Press 3 at 10:45 and logged it. Finished my rounds on the other machines by midnight. Went to the break room, heated up what I'd brought from home, and sat at the table by the window that looks out onto the print floor. I could see all 4 presses from that seat. I had started eating there out of preference. I liked being able to see the floor. At 2:17 in the morning, I heard it. A low hum, mechanical, coming through the wall from the floor. I have spent enough years around printing equipment that there is no ambiguity in that sound for me. A press was running. Not cycling down, not idle, running. I was out of my chair and through the break room door before I had fully processed the thought. Press 3 was running. Full operation. Paper feeding through. Output tray moving. The machine doing exactly what it does during a day shift job. The only difference being that I had shut it down 4 hours ago and the floor was otherwise empty. My first thought was Roy. A calibration test. Some maintenance run I hadn't been told about. I looked around the floor. No Roy. No one. I walked to the control panel. The display on a running press shows the active job. Day shift jobs have client codes, file names, order numbers. The display on press 3 said, "Local operation, no file." I stood in front of that screen for a moment. Then I looked at the output tray. Sheets were coming through. I picked one up. A face, black and white, high resolution. A man, maybe 50 years old, photographed outdoors somewhere. Trees in the background. He wasn't looking at the camera, not posed. The angle was slightly wrong, the framing slightly off, in the way that photos taken without someone's knowledge are always slightly wrong. Someone had taken his picture when he wasn't aware of it. The press ran 12 more sheets before I found the manual stop and cut it. I stood there with the sheet in my hand. I looked at the man's face for a long time. I did not know him. I put the sheet in my jacket pocket and finished my shift without mentioning it to anyone. In the morning, I showed Roy before I clocked out. Handed him the sheet. He looked at it for 2 or 3 seconds. Handed it back. Said the machines glitch sometimes on old equipment. Said it had happened before. Said not to worry about it. I nodded. I went home. I did not believe Roy. Not even slightly. But I went home and I thought about it, and I decided I was going to watch before I did anything else. I stopped eating in the back. I moved my break to the table by the window permanently, every night, watching the floor. Thursday, nothing. Friday, nothing. The whole following week, nothing. Press 3 ran its shutdown each night and stayed dark. I started to construct an explanation. Maybe Roy was right. Maybe it had been a one-time equipment fault. Old machines do strange things. I've seen it. Then the following Wednesday came. 2:09 a.m. Press 3. I went out immediately and stood at the output tray and watched the whole run from start to finish. 41 sheets. I counted them as they came off. All faces. Men and women, and one I was almost certain was a teenager, 16 or 17 years old. All candid photographs. All taken without the subject knowing. Streets, parking lots, outdoor spaces. One that appeared to have been taken in a school pickup line with children visible in the background behind the subject. I took 10 sheets, folded them into my jacket. I went home that morning and sat at my kitchen table and started searching faces online. Not for missing persons, not yet. I was just looking, trying to understand what I had in my hands. I found one by accident. A man about 2 hours east of the facility reported missing that morning. The report had gone up online at 7 a.m. He had last been seen on Wednesday evening. His face was on one of the sheets I had taken from Press 3 at 2 a.m. Wednesday morning. I sat with that for a long time. Very still, very quiet. I searched the other 9 faces over the following days. Found 3 more confirmed matches. All reported missing within 24 hours of that print run. All from different counties. A retired teacher, a young man from a grocery store, a woman in her 30s. Nothing visibly connecting them except that their faces had come through a machine in rural Indiana while they were still being looked for. I didn't call the police. I'm not proud of that. But I didn't know what I had yet, and I could already hear how the words would land. So I went back to work, and I kept watching. Every Wednesday the press ran. Always between 2 and 4 in the morning. Always faces. I stopped taking the sheets. I just stood at the break room window and counted from a distance and wrote everything in a notebook I kept in my jacket. Times, duration, Sheet counts. One Wednesday I counted 67 sheets in a single run. I went home and spent the morning searching. 11 missing persons matches, all reported within 24 hours. 11 people who had come through that machine before anyone knew they were gone. 6 weeks of Wednesdays. And whatever it was not stopping. I decided to trace where the image files were coming from. I know enough about print systems to know that a press doesn't run without a source somewhere. Even an off-network job, even something running outside the regular workflow, has to pull image data from somewhere. Somewhere in the facility's system there was a drive or a partition or something that these files were living on. I spent 3 separate nights working through the print server during the quiet hours. I am not technical by training. I want to be clear about that. I just have enough years around these systems to navigate them slowly and carefully. I wrote everything down as I went. On the 3rd night I found it. A partitioned drive separated from the regular network. Not encrypted. Not particularly hidden. The kind of separation that someone who knew printing equipment would set up, but a professional wouldn't be satisfied with. It felt like the minimum necessary and no more. The drive had image folders going back 4 years, each folder named with a date. Every date was a Wednesday. I opened the oldest folder. Faces, same style, candid, unaware, outdoors. I opened the most recent. I recognized 3 faces before I had scrolled halfway through. People I had been tracking in missing persons reports over the previous weeks. Then I saw the last image in the folder, different from all the others. Not candid, posed. A man standing in a print facility in front of a large offset press, looking directly at the camera. Comfortable, relaxed. Like a man standing in a place he owns. The press behind him was press 3. I knew the layout, the model, the position of the control panel, unmistakable. I looked at the file name, a date and a name. The date was 4 years ago. The name was D. Dolmer. I went home and looked up the company properly for the first time. Dolmer Printing, founded 1987 by a man named David Dolmer, built over 30 years into a mid-size commercial operation. He died in 2019. Heart attack. Found alone in the facility on a Wednesday night. I went back and checked the date on the photograph. 3 weeks before David Dolmer died. He was standing in front of press 3 and smiling at the camera. 3 weeks before he was found dead on the floor of the same room on a Wednesday night. And somewhere in those folders, I was now certain, was his face printed by the same machine. Printed before anyone knew he was gone. I closed the server and did not go back to it. I had enough. The following Wednesday at 2 a.m., the press started its run as usual. I watched from the window. Sheets coming through, output tray filling, same as every week. Then it stopped. Mid-run. Just stopped. It had never done that. Not once across all the weeks I had been watching. I waited. Did not move. The press started again. 3 more sheets, then stopped completely. I waited 20 minutes. Then I went out. The last 3 sheets were face down in the tray. Every sheet that machine had ever printed came through face up. These were face down. I turned the first one over. A face I didn't know. I turned the second one over. A face I didn't know. I stood there for a moment before I reached for the third. Something in me knew before I touched it. I turned it over. It was me. Taken from outside the building, through the break room window. I was sitting at the table, my table, the one I had moved to so I could watch the floor. You could see my phone in my hand. I was looking down at it. I had no idea anyone was out there. The image was clear and properly exposed, and taken by someone who had time to set it up right. There was a timestamp in the corner. 2 weeks ago. A Wednesday. 2:34 a.m. While I had been watching the machine, something had been watching me. I called the police that morning. Non-emergency line. I kept it simple. Press running after hours with no job file. Printed images matching missing persons. A hidden partition going back 4 years. One officer came. He was professional. He took the sheets I had kept, looked at the server, took a report, told me they would follow up. 2 detectives came the following week. Thorough. They took the printed materials, photographed the server contents, opened a preliminary inquiry. They asked me not to discuss the specifics. I was put on paid leave while the facility was under review. 3 months later, one of the detectives called me. She spoke the way someone speaks when they have been briefed on what not to say. The inquiry was being wound down. 14 confirmed image matches to missing persons across 6 counties. But no evidence of any crime committed at the facility itself. No identifiable perpetrator. No mechanism that could be established. The server partition was being classified as unexplained. Her exact words. Those 2 words. Unexplained. The facility had been sold. New owners. County had signed off. Before she could end the call, I asked her about David Dolmer, the founder. The man who died in the building on a Wednesday night. I asked if his face was in the system. There was a pause that lasted long enough that I counted the seconds. She said they would prefer I didn't discuss the specifics of the evidence. I thanked her and hung up. I work days now. Packaging plant. Different machines, different sounds. Good people. I like it fine, and I mean that. But I think about that server. I think about it most nights if I'm honest. 4 years of Wednesdays. Hundreds of faces in those folders. And somewhere in the oldest ones, before it started printing other people, it printed the man who built the place. David Dolmer in front of his machine, smiling like a man who has just finished something he is proud of. He knew. He was there at the beginning. He either built that system himself or he found it and made his peace with it. Maybe he thought he understood what it was. Maybe he thought he had an arrangement. I think the arrangement changed. I think on a Wednesday night in 2019, the press printed David Dolmer's face, and the next morning he was gone, and the machine kept running every Wednesday after that, because whatever David Dolmer started, it didn't need him anymore. I kept the sheet it printed of me. It's in a drawer at home. I look at it sometimes. Myself through a window, small and unaware, looking down at my phone while something outside framed the shot and got the exposure right and waited for the right moment. 14 confirmed matches, the detective said, out of a larger pool. I've sat with those words for months now. 60, 70 sheets some nights. 4 years of Wednesdays. 14 confirmed. Confirmed means they were already in a missing persons report, already being looked for. The rest of those faces belong to real people too. They just hadn't been reported yet. Or maybe they never were. Maybe some of them are still out there somewhere, not knowing yet that a machine in rural Indiana already printed their face on a Wednesday night. Already put them in a folder with a date on it. Already decided.